The desert wind blew across Outpost Veganine, carrying dust and heat under a pale orange sky. Soldiers moved quickly between the steel buildings, careful not to look toward the center of the base. There, inside a cage made of reinforced titanium, stood something no one wanted to face. She was 9 feet tall. Her skin was a pale blue, smooth like stone, but alive. Her arms were thick with muscle, her shoulders broad, her fingers long and clawed. Her hair flowed like silver silk, hanging down to her back, untouched. She wore a torn black combat dress, burned at the edges, and she hadn't spoken since she was captured. It's not even once. No one knew her name. The soldiers just called her the Giant. She's not just tall, one soldier whispered. She broke a hover tank with her bare hands. Another added, they say she bit through a man's helmet, crushed his skull like an egg. The rules were clear. Eye contact, no sudden moves, and never ever get close. They fed her by remote drone. They shocked her through the walls when she moved too fast. She didn't sleep, didn't sit, didn't blink. She just stood, watching the sky as if waiting for something. Or someone. Then one day that someone arrived. Private Cade Renner stepped off the shuttle transport with dust on his boots and tired eyes. He wasn't tall, wasn't loud, and he didn't wear medals, just a patch on his vest that read, Peacekeeper. He had been transferred from another Sector 1 that had seen too many alien wars, too much death. Now they sent him here. To watch her, to try. On his first morning, he walked to the cage. The guard stared at him like he'd lost his. Mind you can't go near her, said Sergeant Darnell. She's not a pet. She's a bomb waiting to go off. Renner nodded, then kept walking. The Giant didn't move as he approached. Her eyes glowing violet followed him, calm, but sharp. Renner stopped just outside the cage. He placed a bottle of water on the ground and pushed it gently forward with his boot. She looked at it, then at him. It's hot out here, he said, voice quiet. Even monsters get thirsty, right? She didn't react. The next day he came. Back. This time with a small tray of food fresh, not processed paste like the drones delivered. He sat cross-legged 5 feet from the bars. You don't eat, he said. Why? You'll starve. Again, silence. But this time, her eyes stayed locked on the tray. The other soldiers laughed behind his back, called him names, said he was wasting his time. But Renner came back the next day. And the next, a week passed. Then one morning, the food was gone. The tray was empty. The water bottle half drained. Renner smiled and sat down again. So you're not a ghost after all. The wind blew her silver hair across her face. She pushed it back slowly, still watching him, still quiet. That night, the base commander called a meeting. She must bond, he said. That's what her species does. One bond for life. If she doesn't choose someone soon, the government will take her away. Everyone knew what that meant: secret labs, cutting tables, screaming behind soundproof walls. No one wants her, the commander said. Too risky, Renner said. The room fell silent. You serious? Darnell asked. You don't even know what she is? I don't need to, Renner said. I just know she hasn't killed anyone since she got here. It means something. So they let him try. The bond ceremony was simple. A soldier stepped into the cage, unarmed, and stood still. If the alien accepted, she would speak. But well, no one survived rejection. Renner entered slowly. The doors closed behind him. She turned. Their eyes met. Time froze. He took one step forward, then another. His heart pounded in his chest. He raised his hands not in fear but in peace. She looked down at him. She blinked. Then she took a single step forward, thunder in her footfall, and reached out with one large hand. Renner didn't move. Her fingers brushed his chest, right above his heart. And then, in a voice deep and soft, like falling snow, she whispered a single word. The base lights flickered. The translator in Renner's earpiece sparked, then went dead. The word wasn't in any database, but everyone watching knew. What had just happened? She had chosen, and the one human no one expected just became the only one she trusted. The word echoed across the base like thunder wrapped in silence. No one understood it, not the translators, not the command officers, not even the linguists who were rushed into the control room. But every soldier felt it. Something had changed. Inside the cage, Renner didn't move. Her giant hand was still over his chest, her fingers spread, not gripping, just feeling, as if checking if his heart still beat. Her eyes, glowing violet, watched him with something new, no longer cold, no longer guarded, something softer. Something older. She whispered again, the same word. Renner blinked. What? What does that mean? The alien tilted her head, slowly like a large predator curious about a smaller creature. Then, without warning, she turned her back to him, manned knelt. Everyone watching the cameras froze. She lowered her massive body to the floor, bent one knee, and pressed her fist to her shoulder in a gesture none of them had ever seen before. It wasn't a threat, wasn't surrender, it was respect. Commander Halvax nearly dropped his coffee. What the hell am I looking at? The base's alien consultant, a gray-haired ex-diplomat named Grovan, stepped forward and squinted at the monitor. That's not surrender, Grovan said. That's cultural. It's an ancient vow. Warriors from her species, they kneel only to their bonded. Bonded. The commander repeated. It means she chose him for life. Back in the cage, Renner stood completely still. We're kneeling to me? He asked softly. She looked up. And then slowly, she reached for the edge of her worn combat dress and tore a small piece of the cloth. She held it out to him. He stepped forward, took it gently, and nodded. She looked pleased. Outside the cage, everything turned to chaos. Officers debated whether it was safe to let Renner stay bonded. Some wanted to take her into custody again. Tests keep her locked up, but others knew the truth. If they broke the bond now, they risked war with a race whose strength and pride ran deeper than steel and Renner. He didn't want to leave her. That night, the base was quiet. It's too quiet. Renner sat near the bars of the cage again, though this time the door was open. She could walk out if she wanted. She didn't. Instead, she sat opposite him, cross-legged, just like he did. Her knees were higher than his shoulders. Her arms rested on her legs. She watched him. He tried to speak, but she held up a hand. Then slowly, almost clumsily, she pointed to herself. The Lixa, she said. He pointed to himself. Renner, Ner, she repeated. He smiled. Close enough. She lifted a hand, touched her chest, and said the strange word again, the same one that broke the translator. Then she pointed to him. It clicked. That word, it means me. She paused, then nodded once. Or us. Another slow nod, then carefully, she raised her hand and placed it on his again. The size difference was shocking. Her fingers could wrap around his entire forearm. But her touch was gentle, not forced, careful, like she didn't want to break him. For a species known to crush bones and throw tanks, that touch meant more than words. Back in the command center, technicians worked all night trying to rebuild the broken translator. One young engineer, Layla, finally cracked the glitch by morning. She ran into the commander's office, breathless. I got it. The word she spoke, it means soul-bound. The room went silent. Grovan leaned in. Are you certain? Completely. It's not just a bond. It's sacred, unbreakable. It's older than her people's first cities. They choose only once in a lifetime. Commander Halvax stared at the monitor, where Renner sat laughing softly as the alien giant tried to mimic his clumsy human jokes. Tell me, the commander said. Is he even aware what he agreed to? No, sir, Grovan said. But she is. As the sun rose on the dusty outpost, something had clearly shifted. The fear in the air had turned into curiosity. Soldiers began watching the cage not with dread but with wonder. One guard, Corporal Nash, shook his head and whispered, How did that gov all people become the one? Another answered, maybe because he was the only one who didn't try to own her. He just saw her. Down in the cage, Thalixa reached forward and carefully traced a mark on Renner's chest using dust from the floor. It was a symbol one. She drew again in the sand between them. Renner tilted his head. "What does that mean?" She smiled just barely. "It means mine." The sun had barely risen over Outpost Veganine when a dark ship broke the clouds. It wasn't human. Sleek, sharp, and silent, it drifted down like a blade wrapped in shadows. The base sounded no alarms. They had no time. The ship stopped mid-air, hovering above the landing zone without sound, as if the air itself held its breath. Inside the base, Renner stood beside Thalixa. She didn't look up. She knew. "They've come for me," she said in a low voice. Renner looked at her. "Your people?" She gave a small nod, and spoke 5 words that made him freeze. "If I leave, I die." Renner's chest tightened. "Why?" She turned toward him, kneeling once again as she had before, but this time not for respect this time. It was shame, and then she explained. Her species, known to humans only as the Velari, were bound by ancient law written, unbroken, and cruel. A warrior who bonds with an outsider cannot return. To do so is betrayal. The punishment is death. Not just for her, but for the one she bonded with. Renner stepped back, stunned. "You knew this, and you still chose me?" She stood slowly, towering over him, her glowing eyes burning with something fierce. "I choose once," she said. "Once is enough." Above, the alien ship opened its hatch. A figure appeared armored, taller than Thalixa, draped in black. Robes and bone jewelry. Its presence pressed on the air like gravity. What? Her brother. High Enforcer of the Valerie Code. Thalixa stepped forward, but Renner grabbed her arm. "You're not going out there alone," he said. "You will die," she said. "I'm bonded too, remember?" He gave a crooked smile. "I'm already dead." Technically, the base was on lockdown now. Soldiers gathered near the windows, watching as the two walked out side by side, man and giant. No weapons. Just the mark she had drawn on his chest with dust. The High Enforcer spoke in a voice that shook glass. "You broke the oath, sister." Thalixa stood tall. "I followed the bond. You bonded with prey," he spat. "A species that burns. Planets and calls it justice." Renner stepped forward. "I didn't ask for this bond, but I won't let you take her." The alien stared at him. "Do you even know what she gave up for you?" "I'm learning," Renner said. "Fast." The Enforcer raised his hand. Dozens of smaller ships descended from the sky. War-class scouts. Weapons hot, ready to turn the base to ash. Commander Halvax called Renner on the comm, panicked. "Fall back." "That's an army, son." But Renner didn't move. Instead, Thalixa reached into her dress and pulled something out, something old. Made of stone and blood and steel, a piece of her ancestral crest. She shattered it on the ground. The Enforcer froze. That symbol was sacred. Breaking it meant only one thing: she had severed her right to return. Forever, gasps came from every channel. The soldiers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Renner whispered, "What does that mean?" She turned to him, eyes glowing brighter now. "I just made you my world." The alien forces above held their fire. The Enforcer looked at her one last time. Then at Renner. "You will regret this," he said. "The bond will change you both." Then he turned. The black ship closed. The sky swallowed them. They were gone. Renner and Thalixa stood alone in the silence. 2 shadows on cracked sand, breathing the same air, now tied by something more powerful than orders, more ancient than war. Back inside the base, Mahos turned to awe. Some soldiers clapped. Some bowed. One. Kneeled. Commander Halvax rubbed his face. "So we're not just housing a prisoner now," he muttered. "We're sheltering a walking declaration of war." Groven, the old alien advisor, smiled. "Not war, sir. Something rarer. We're witnessing an alliance written in blood and choice." Later that night, Renner and Thalixa sat beside the cage knot, inside, not outside, just between. There was no need for walls anymore. You could have stayed with them, he said. I never belonged there, she replied. But with you, I feel seen. He leaned back, watching the stars. Your law is harsh, he said. So is yours, she said. Your people would have cut me open. He nodded. Guess we're both strays now. She looked at him and whispered, Then we stray together. As the two watched the stars, a soft light glowed in the sand below them. It was the mark she had drawn in dust, now pulsing on its own. The bond was alive. Outpost Veganine was changing. The air felt different. The guards who once feared the giant alien now stepped aside when she passed. She no longer lived in a cage. She moved freely across the base, always beside one-man Renner. Some called her a threat. Others whispered protector. But everyone watched her, and no one dared challenge her not while she walked with her head high in her violet. Eyes locked on the horizon, she had bonded, and nothing, it seemed, could break that. But envy, unlike stone, needs no strength to destroy. Inside the officers' barracks, behind locked doors, voices rose in secret. This bond is dangerous, hissed Lieutenant Crail. She could crush all of us in our sleep. She won't, someone said. She hasn't hurt anyone, yet Crail snapped. She's got a hold on him. He's too close. Doesn't see it, but I do. Round the table sat Fermengulus, bitter, forgotten. They had watched Renner rise from quiet soldier to legend. Not with weapons, not with orders, just with kindness. Burn them inside. She trusts only him, one muttered. That's why we remove him, Crail said, eyes narrowing. If he's gone, her balance breaks, and then we can handle her properly. They made their plan that night. No alarms. Just a quiet needle, a silent lift, and a lie at dawn. Renner didn't wake. His bunk was empty. No signs of a struggle. Just his cum device broken, crushed under his bed. Thalixa knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into the room. Her nose caught a trace of chemicals. Her eyes scanned every detail. She touched the cum, then lifted it to her face. She closed her eyes and listened. Renner's scent was there, and something else. Oil, boot grease, tranquilizer powder. She turned and roared. The sound tore through the base like a shockwave. Lights flickered. Drones froze. Soldiers dropped weapons and covered their ears. But it wasn't rage. It was pain. She moved faster than anyone had ever seen her move. Steel doors. Bent guards stepped back without orders. The bond in her chest pulsed wildly alive, burning. She could feel him, not gone, not dead, but fading. She followed the scent to the hangar. A small transport ship had just launched. Unauthorized, she didn't wait. She sprinted, leaped, and as the ship lifted, she grabbed its rear thruster in midair, dug her claws into the hull, and pulled. The ship tilted sideways, crashing into the desert just outside the base, smoke and sand flying high into the sky. She tore the doors open like paper. Inside, Renner lay tied to a stretcher, a needle still. In his arm, and next to him Krell and the other officers. Stunned and bleeding from the crash, they reached for their sidearms. They never got the chance. Thalex's body, blurred. One swing knocked the weapons across the cabin, another shoved Crail into a steel wall so hard it dented. But she didn't kill. Them, she didn't need to. She stepped over them and dropped to her knees beside Renner. His breathing was slow, too slow. She pressed her hand to his chest. No response. Her whole body trembled. Then she did something no one had ever seen before. She cut her own palm with her claw, pressed the bleeding wound to Renner's chest, and whispered the bond word. The lights flickered, her blood glowing. Faintly blue dripped into his skin like light sinking into darkness. And slowly, his eyes opened. You look terrible, he muttered. She exhaled. No words, just a shiver. A tear ran down her cheeks, something her people were not meant to feel. Back at the base, medics and officers rushed to the crash site, but none stepped forward when they saw her. Kneeling in the smoke, cradling the human like he was more precious than breath, Commander Halvax arrived. He looked at the wreckage, Then at the four captured traitors lying unconscious in restraints of their own design, Groven appeared behind. Him. They tried to separate a bond that was not made by man. Halvax nodded, and she reminded them what happens when you threaten it. Later, as Renner rested in the infirmary, Thelixa sat beside his bed, motionless. He looked up at her with tired eyes. You came for me. She leaned down, voice deep and soft. I would cross stars. To bring you back. He smiled. Next time, I'll stay awake. She touched his chest again, and her eyes lit with a strange fire. And then she said something. New. I do not serve Earth. I do not serve command. I serve the bond. And in that moment, Renner understood. This was no longer just protection. It was war if needed. She would destroy planets to keep him safe. The medbay was quiet. Machines beeped gently, measuring Renner's heartbeat. Pale light came through the dusty windows. The walls still shook from the crash hours ago, but here, time moved slower, held back by something stronger than pain. Thelixa sat beside the bed. She hadn't moved in hours. Her body still carried dust and scratches from pulling the ship down. Her long silver hair was tied back with a strip of cloth torn from her own dress. She didn't blink. She didn't speak, but she was waiting, waiting. For the one thing she couldn't control, his voice. Renner stirred. His eyes opened slowly, then focused on her. Still here? He croaked. She leaned in. I never left, she said, voice low, but it wasn't her language. It wasn't her voice coming through alone. It was the translator repaired. It blinked at her collar, synced fully for the first time. Her words now. Clear traveled through it without static. Renner blinked. You're speaking English. She nodded. I always did. You just couldn't hear me. Groven entered quietly, holding the translator control pad in both hands.
But
The lexicon module. It finally understood her dialect. Took it long enough, Renner tried to sit up. I need answers. Thelixa stood and faced the window. Her back straight, shoulders wide, like a statue ready to break into battle. You want to know what the bond truly means? She said. He nodded. She turned back, her face calmed at something trembled beneath it. In my culture, bonding is not love, she said. Not at first. It is not marriage, not romance. It is belief. Belief in what? In one being, she said, so that they are worthy, that they will not leave, that they will walk into fire and never expect you to follow. Erner said nothing. His breath caught in his throat. I was bred to fight, she continued, not to choose. I was told I'd die in battle or birth a warrior stronger than me. I was told never bond. Renner leaned forward. Then why did you? She stepped closer. Because you didn't flinch. You didn't treat me like a tool or a test. You sat down in the dust and offered food with no demand. You spoke to me when no one else dared. You gave me a name to hold on to. She knelt beside him, her eyes now level with his. I broke 1,000 years of law when I touched your heart. Not out of duty, but out of need. Renner swallowed. So what happens now? Groven stepped forward. Now the bond changes him. Renner blinked. What? Thelixa stood again. You've shared blood with me? During the crash, I gave part of myself to wake you. My people believe when two lives are joined by choice and by blood, something ancient awakens. Groven nodded. It's why the translator failed before. It's the bond created a language between you two. One, our tech wasn't ready for. Renner looked at his chest. The spot where she'd pressed her bleeding hand had healed, but the skin shimmered faintly. Now, like light underwater, what's happening to me? Thelixa looked him in the eyes. You will start to feel things. Hear voices not your own. See memories not yours. It is not infection. It is not sickness. It is awakening. Will I's voice was quiet. Will I become one of you? No, she said. You will become both. The door to the medbay opened again. Commander Halvax entered. Flanked by guards, he didn't waste time. We just received a message from the Volari High Council. Felix's body tensed. Renner sat straighter. What did they say? Halvax sighed. They demand the return of their warrior, alive or dead. Groven added, they've declared the bond a violation of sacred war protocol. If we don't return her within 3 days, they'll send warships. Renner looked at Thalexa. Will they attack? She nodded. Why did Yes Halvac stepped forward. I'm under pressure to send her away. But we've also seen what happens when anyone tries to separate you two. The room fell silent. Then Halvax continued. So I'm offering another option. We send both of you to represent Earth as a united bond. You'll face the council together. We gamble everything on the strength of your connection. Thalexa looked at Renner. I will go only if you say the word. Renner held her gaze. His voice was calm but steady like iron. Then let's go. Together, Groven smiled. Well then, time to test whether a bond made in dust can survive fire. The sky above Veganine darkened as the Valerie ship arrived. It wasn't like any human ship. It didn't land. It floated silent, shaped like a silver claw wrapped in light. No engines roared. No weapons showed. But every soldier watching from the base felt it in their bones. This wasn't a visit. This was judgment. Renner stood at the base gate, dressed in a clean uniform, one hand resting on his chest, right where the marks still shimmered faintly under. His skin, his body, felt strange these days, stronger, faster, and sometimes too quiet inside, as if another heartbeat echoed behind his own. Beside him, Thalexa wore armor, not human gear, not old battle scraps, real armor velare, bone metal, elegant, dark and curved to her tall body like it had been waiting for her to return. Her face was calm, but her shoulders were stiff. She was going home, not as a warrior, not as a prisoner, but as something her people had no word for. I'm ready, Renner said. Thalexa turned, eyes searching his face. They will try to take me from you. They'll fail. They may try to take you from me. Renner gave a crooked smile. Then they'll fail twice. The ship's light opened like a mouth. They stepped in together, inside. The ship was cold, quiet, no crew visible, just soft white walls and a round room in the center. Lit by blue rings that pulsed with each step they took, Thalexa sat first. Folding her large frame down with practiced stillness, Renner sat across from her. The air felt heavier here. A voice filled the chamber, not spoken aloud, but inside there. Minds, the bonded, have entered. Judgment begins. Renner gripped the edge of the chair. This isn't a trial, is it? It is. Something older, Thalexa said. They will not ask you questions. They will search you. Search your soul. Before he could respond, the walls shimmered. Light bent and shifted, and suddenly he wasn't in the ship anymore. He stood in the desert of Vega-9 alone. Alexa was gone. No walls. No air. Just silence. Then a voice human. Why did you bond? He turned. No one there. Another voice. What did you see in her? Strength, power, a weapon. He shouted into the emptiness. I saw someone alone. I saw someone they feared. Someone who never had a choice. You chose her. I didn't know what it meant, yet you stayed. Stayed, he said. Softer now, because she never asked for anything, but gave everything. Suddenly the desert cracked. From the sand rose Imagus Alexa in chains, kneeling, Thalexa roaring in pain, Thalexa weeping in the shadows of her cell, and then Thalexa laughing for the first time, awkward and strange. As Renner spilled water on his boot, a final image appeared, Renner offering her a piece of food. The first day they met, that moment small and silent, hovered between stars and everything. Paused. In the real world, the ship's chamber pulsed faster. Thalexa's eyes were closed. She was seeing too. Inside her vision, she stood before her ancestors. Ghostly forms. Tall, armored, thousands of years old. They did not speak. They only watched, and then they stepped aside. Behind them stood one form. Human-sized Renner. She walked toward him when she reached him. The ghostly ancestors turned and knelt, All of them, one by one, back in the ship. Rainer gasped and opened his eyes. Thelixa opened hers at the same time. The ship lights changed, shifting to deep purple. Groven's voice came in through a hidden cum. I don't know what just happened in there, but ... something changed. The judgment chamber went quiet. Then, for the first time, a door opened in the wall. A single Valari elder stood there, robes flowing, eyes like molten glass. You passed, he said. Not because of the bond, but because neither of you tried to use it for power. Alexa stepped forward. Then what are we now? The elder tilted his head. Now, you are the first of something new. He turned to Renner. We ask you to represent humanity, not as a warrior, but as a bridge. Renner looked at Thelixa. Only if she stands with me. She already does, the elder said. She always did. The ship returned them to Veganine, but nothing was the same when they stepped out. The base saluted not just Renner, but her too. The war that had been coming never arrived. It didn't need to. Something bigger had happened. Two worlds, two people once built to fight, had chosen to protect instead. Years later, they would still speak of it. The day the Valerie bowed to a human, the day warships were turned back not by force, not by fire, but before the story became legend, before children on both planets were taught there. Names Renner and Thelixa stood together at the edge of a quiet hill, looking down at a gathering unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands had arrived. Not soldiers, not spies, not enemies. Witnesses the Valari High Council had ordered it. Earth's leadership had agreed. A final ritual before the bond would be recorded in both worlds' history forever. A union, not marriage, not politics, not a treaty, something older, something sacred. Renner adjusted his collar, still not used to the ceremonial robe. You sure about this? Thelixa smiled just slightly. Her eyes, usually cold and sharp, softened only for him. You stood before? My ancestors, she said. Now I will stand before yours. As they walked toward the stone platform, voices quieted. Every species present knew the meaning. Bonding was private, yes, but when witnessed by nations, it became law. Groven. Now, Earth's ambassador stood near the front. He leaned toward Commander Halvax. Funny, he whispered. We sent him here to watch her. Now he walks with her to shape the future. Halvax folded his arms. He was the only one who didn't treat her like a cage. On the platform, Renner and Thelixa faced each other. No weapons, no flags, just two beings who chose to trust. When no one else dared, a Valerie elder raised a hand. Speak. Renner nodded once. He looked up at her, and for the first time, he didn't see a giant. He saw someone who had been chained, feared, forgotten, and still chose kindness. I was trained to follow orders, he said. But you taught me how to listen. Thelixa looked down, her voice deep but gentle. I was trained to obey law. But you showed me how to disobey with purpose. Their hands touched. Her claws, his fingers, light sparked between them. Real. Glowing. Soft, the bond pulsed once more. A final time, and then it was sealed. The crowd watched in silence as a new mark, shaped like a spiral and a flame, appeared between their palms. Not carved. Not in cat-born weeks passed, then months, something strange began to happen. Reports came in from across. Valari territory acts of mercy. Alliances forming. Warrior clans offering peace where once there was only blood. Human diplomats were invited. Into cities previously closed for 1,000 years, one word was always present. It meant bond-born peace. And in all records, it was linked to one event, one pair. Back on Earth, Renner now worked from a quiet station in orbit. No longer a soldier, not exactly a politician, something in between. He studied new languages. He trained others to listen before. Aiming, he wore the spiral mark, like a metal knot for pride. But as proof that being human wasn't about winning, it was about seeing Thelixa. Joined Earth's ambassador team, she taught cadets about her world, its pain, its rules, its honor. But when asked what changed her most, she never said. War, she always said. A man with a water bottle and too much dust on his boots. Then came the day the Valari crown ship visited Earth. 1,000,000 eyes turned to the sky. No war, no demand, only a request. We wish to meet the one your people called unremarkable, the one who changed ours. Renner stood at the landing field, hands in his pockets, the Lexa beside him, wearing a formal Earth coat that didn't quite fit her size. He looked up at the crowd. Think they'll bow again? She looked at him. No, she said, this time they will rise. And they did. When the ship opened, when Renner and Thalixa stepped forward, every Valari elder stood not in protest, but in respect. Because once, long ago, a human offered food to a prisoner no one dared touch. And now, their names were written not in ink, but in history.